Contrary to what most people think, when people try to convince us of something we want is more important to us than what makes sense. It's because as humans, we act based on what we want, not what we need. When we know this, it's easy to see how we can influence other people. The art of influencing anyone gives clear instruction on how to do this. Whether you are a salesperson who wants to make more sales or you just want to be more convincing in everyday life. Niall Cassidy shows us a different ways to get friends, family, coworkers, and customers to believe in you or your product. Are you all set? Find out how to get people to do what you want. Socraters Inc. presents Summary of the Art of Influencing Anyone by Niall Cassidy. The classic must-read for anyone who wants to learn how to sound more convincing and persuasive. Notes number 1. Persuasion is not about making sense, but about how you talk and look. Have you ever been passed over for a promotion at work by someone who didn't work hard and didn't have the right skills? It happens more often than you might think, and it's very frustrating. This is because not all decisions, including those made by our boss, are based on logic. In other words, why isn't the most obvious way to change someone's mind also the best way? It's because we don't listen to logical arguments as much as believe what we want to hear. Takes two people who want to start a business project by telling their boss about their ideas. One of them gives a perfectly good reason why they should do it slowly and step by step. The other person is very excited and say that it's better to just jump right in, but she doesn't give any good reasons for this. Who do you think the boss will choose to be in charge of the project? Most likely the second one, because the person was more interesting and showed more interest in what the boss wanted to hear. These common situations show that the personality of the speaker is often more important than the content or logic. Notes number 2. Be friendly and warm at all times and act like you know what you're talking about. You just stole money from a bank and the police are coming to catch you. You can get out of this if you have a good reason for not being there. Unfortunately, the only person you can find to help you is a shady person who no one will take seriously. Is there a way to make him seem trustworthy and credible? Quite unexpectedly, yes. By giving as much as information as he can, he will look like he knows what he's talking about and as the result, be more convincing. Use lying to your advantage if you want to get out of situation by lying. Even though lying is risky, if you want to lie convincingly, give us as much detail and information as you can. In the case of your alibi for the bank robbery, have your alibi partner give exact details about what you were doing, where you went, what you wore, who you met up with, and so on. All of these details will make it more likely that your story is true. If you can't think enough of details, be friendly and funny. This will help hide any gaps in your knowledge. In a famous experiment where an actor pretended to be a well-informed professor and gave a talk to a group of experts, this strategy worked. Notes number 3. Influence people by arranging and simplifying information to make it easier to comprehend. We have talked so far about what makes people more convincing. We'll get more specific in this one. Let's look at what business can do to be more convincing. When you talk to a customer as a salesperson, you should only let them choose between two products or service. Even though we know that detailed information is important for credibility, no one likes to be flooded with too much information. We don't like having too many choices, but when we are trying to decide whether to buy something or not, we do like to compare a few of them. Think about a customer who wants to buy a new jacket. In this case, it would be best to only show them two different jackets and tell them what's good and bad about each one. After you have shown them the jackets and told them what you like and don't like about each one, tell them which jacket you think would be best. So the customer feels like you have thought about all of her options and come to a decision that fits her needs. Notes number 4. Your consumer will believe you know about them than you actually do if you communicate in an ambiguous manner. Sounds weird, right? But do you believe in fortune teller? Maybe not, but it's likely that you have looked at your horoscope before and thought it made sense in some way. So, how can this be? A method that many fortune tellers use is called cold reading. So let's take a look at how we can use this in business to persuade people. Getting known to your customer is important because it gives them a reason to trust you. To do this, it helps to make them think you know a lot about them and what they need and want, even if you don't. The method for cold reading is actually very easy. All it takes are a few sentences that are not clear and have a lot of statements that could have been taken in many different ways. So, say you walk up to a customer who is looking at washing machines and start talking to them. You should start by making general statements so that your customer will agree with you right away. This could be, it's a real pain to do laundry, isn't it? Then try to talk about the customer and a specific situation by saying something like, I'm sure you want to spend less time doing their laundry. Since this is the something most people can relate to, it's likely that your customer will agree with you. This statement doesn't require you to be able to read people's mind, but it will make you seem like you really understand and care about your customer. To seem like you know everything about the person you're talking to, you don't have to be able to read their minds. All you need to do is talk about things in a general way. Notes number 5. The key to persuasion is curiosity. We are impatient and lose interest quickly, so getting our attention is important. In this age of information, there are a lot of things that want our attention, like Facebook notification and a lot of other updates on our phones. This means that we have to decide quickly and often whether or not we want something. Researchers were surprised to find that only 1 in 5 people read past the headline of an ad. So if you can get a potential customer interest in your product in the first few minutes of talking to them, they probably won't buy it. Start a conversation with something interesting or surprising to make people want to know more. If you jump right into your argument, the person listening to you will get bored. You should say something funny, surprising, or even controversial to start. The most important thing is that you have caught the attention of your audience. Notes number 6. People purchase what they desire rather than what they need. Imagine that you just saw an ad for a great new smartphone. Even if you already have a great phone, we all know what it's like to think about buying a new one. Why? People will buy your product regardless of whether they need it or not if you can make them want it. Most salespeople look for ways to give customers exactly what they want because sometimes it works better to focus on what they want. This is something you can see every day. Why? For example, do teenagers smoke? Not because they need nicotine, but because they want to fit in and be accepted by their peers. So telling them why it's bad for them to smoke won't stop them from buying cigarettes. Instead of giving customers logical or sensible reasons to buy your products, give them reasons that makes them want what they want. One way to get them to want something is to change the way they see things. When you change someone's view, especially of themselves, you can also change how they think and act. This is because deep down we want our action to match how we feel, or self-perception. Notes number 7. To get people do what you want, you have to hide your true intentions so you don't seem too desperate. Let's say you are trying to figure out which laptop to buy. Who would you trust more, a salesperson or a friend who has used both computers? Get your customers to sell for you if you want to make more sales. If you can get your customers to tell their friends about you, your sales will go up and you will look less needy. This is what most multi-level marketing do. We tend to trust the opinions of other customers more than the opinions of salespeople. So we should try to think of ways to advertise products through the opinions of others. But you don't have to always use someone else. You can do it yourself. For example, if you meet someone in a social setting who could be a customer, tell them a story about your product in a way that doesn't make it obvious that you are trying to sell them something. For instance, if you are an insurance broker, you could tell a sad story about a client who died in an accident and left his or her family with nothing because they didn't have life insurance. Note number 8. Don't try to fight someone's resistance when you are trying to convince them of something, but use it. We have already seen that saying something surprisingly or shocking can get someone's attention. To take this a step further, since things that are out of the ordinary get people's attention, you can also act in a strange way to keep people interested in what you have to say. Many studies have shown that if you try hard to change someone's mind, he is likely to get defensive and become even more sure of what he believes. So, if it's pointless to try to fight someone's resistance, what can you do to get past it? Best thing to do is to use it to answer and clear up the customer's own question. Imagine you are a car salesperson. It can be hard to get rid of all bad things your customers think about your product. So why not use them to your advantage? First, you should agree with what your customer has to say. They might think that the car you suggested is too small. If you agree with them on this issue, they will be happy and start to trust you. Then, find a way to change their minds by showing them why, even with all the bad things they are thinking, your product is still great. You could say that the car is much easier to park because it is small. Because they now trust you, they feel like your arguments are more objective, which makes them easier to convince. So, here's a quick recap. We can all convince people of things. We can have more influence on the people around us and be more convincing about ourselves and the things we want to sell if we use good strategies when we talk to them. So, what are your options? Be unexpected and cause trouble. If you want to sell something, you have to get people's attention. Start a conversation with a customer by saying something surprising, funny, or even controversial. This will get them interested in what you have to say. When a customer points out a problem with your product, you should agree with them. The language of hard selling is pretty clear and turns customers off these days. The next time you want to sell something, take the customer's side when they say something bad about it. Just make sure you still list the benefits and end by saying why it's still a good buy. So, what do you think about our video? If you like our video, give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. If you like the book, we also recommend you to buy the original book to get more in-depth information about the book. And we will see you in next one.